Next up, we have Maractus. Though not usually thought of as a musical Pokemon, it certainly is one. When Maractus rhythmically moves its body, it makes maraca-esque sounds that go chicky chicky boom, hence its appearance and name. The anime episode, A Maractus Musical, in which Toby's 3 Maractus practice a move that they would then perform in a musical, definitely further illustrated this. Additionally, Maractus is based on a cacti, believe it or not, specifically the prickly pear genus of flowering cactus. Its somewhat rabbit-like appearance may also be a reference to the bunny ears cactus. Finally, Maractus appears to draw influence from traditional Mexican dress styles and Spanish dances, and this cornucopia of inspired influences makes for a unique, appealing design. But today we're going to be traversing terrain even rougher than the Unova Desert Resort where Maractus originates. That of course being the competitive scene. And so we ask, how good was Maractus actually? But before we start, a really close friend of mine is releasing his own indie game in just 2 days called Epiphany City. I'm in the credits as I've personally playtested this game myself, and I can confidently say that it has some of the most creative and mind-blowing moments I've ever seen, including its ingenious ending. But don't worry, the difficulty isn't super high, so as long as you can figure out some of the trickier Pokemon gyms, you'll be just fine. And if you're interested in Epiphany City or just want to show us your support, you can click the link below and wishlist it on Steam. And in this video, we'll be going over these competitive formats, with poor base stats accounting for a pathetic total of 461 that ensured it would always be slow and frail. Its debut generation didn't look too great for Maractus. Sure, it had valuable access to spikes, as well as other irritating support moves in Leech Seed and Knockoff, but there was this Pokemon called Ferrothorn that also happened to have those moves, while also possessing a few minor extra advantages. But wait, you wonder, Ferrothorn was an OU staple. Was there no room for Maractus in the lower tiers where Ferrothorn couldn't outclass it? No, because Ferroseed did that instead. But wait, once again, you insist. Ferroseed was RU. Surely there was some sort of NU niche for Maractus. Still, the answer was no, as the tier already had an excellent grass-type spiker in Roselia, which was better than Maractus in literally every single meaningful way. Though Maractus was surely more musical than its competition, the only music it produced if it were used competitively would be mournful hymns of loss and deathly dirges of defeat. It was overpowered, outsped, and outclassed at every corner. Generation 5 sure had some inspired creative designs, and Maractus was one of them, but as so many Pokemon have taught us before, that does not necessarily translate to competitive success. There's no way around it. Maractus is just as terrible in VGC as it is in singles. Worse even, with little use for spikes or Leech Seed. The main thing that this cactus is good for is providing a little rhythm to cheer you up as you dance your way to a loss, because you're using Maractus. Mostly though, it just sucks. Literally. What makes Maractus's terrible status all the more impressive is that it's blessed with a downright incredible ability in Storm Drain. And when you take a look at Maractus's stats, its special attack isn't that bad, right? It's just, you know, its speed, move, pull, and everything else. Nevertheless, Maractus has one admirable result in its VGC career, courtesy of #1 Machop fan Robert Whitehill. #1 Machop fan went all in on Rain, building a team exclusively of Pokemon that could benefit from stormy conditions. Drizzle Politoed, Dry Skin Toxicroak, Storm Drain Gastrodon, the 4x Fire vulnerable Scizor, Hurricane spamming Tornadus, and of course, Storm Drain Maractus. This allowed #1 Machop fan to frequently fire off Politoed's Surf without fear of chipping down his own team, or even boosting them. As for the Maractus itself, Robert chose to run a bulky spread for Maractus, shoring up its speed with Tailwind and its attacking stats with Storm Drain. Maractus doesn't have a lot of attacking move pool options to work with, so #1 Machop fan opted for Giga Drain and Hidden Power Rock, which covered the fire and flying types Maractus otherwise couldn't hit. Protect was an easy choice, and the last slot went to Helping Hand, a useful tool to facilitate other teammates if Maractus itself couldn't attack. While Robert's Maractus team was by no means untouchable, he did manage to finish top 8 at Australian Nationals, a high water mark by any measure. Give it a fair shake and Maractus might surprise you. It certainly left its opponents rattled, but honestly, it's mostly good for letting me make puns. Special thanks to #1 Machop fan for the information. And that's it. So how good was Maractus actually? Well, Game Freak were so embarrassed by its pitiful performance in Generation 5 that they deleted its existence from every subsequent game. Arceus' mistake, they called it. Celebi wept, they opined. Professor Juniper probably just hallucinated it, they explained to anyone, as they wondered where that strange, lovable musical cactus had gone. Or well, that was the plan anyway. Maractus was genuinely an easygoing Pokemon. Its lack of competitive success didn't really bother it at all. It preferred jamming out to the groovy tunes anyway, and that was just it though. Maractus was an easygoing Pokemon before it got wind of Game Freak's plans for it, and as such, Game Freak only attempted to delete Maractus, but they never succeeded. Maractus made sure of that. Just kidding, we didn't hear any of the sort. We're just a bunch of goofballs after all. Anyway, in Generation 6, Maractus received the most unique Mega Evolution of all, as the Maractus allowed it to Mega Evolve into Mega Rayquaza. Yes, that's right, every single Mega Rayquaza you've ever seen has been Maractus in disguise, but it shouldn't be that surprising. Number one, they're both green. That in and of itself should be a giveaway to anyone capable of putting 2 and 2 together. No wonder it slipped by so much of the Pokemon fanbase. Number two, did you really believe that Rayquaza could Mega Evolve without a Mega Stone? Come on now, will you fall for anything Game Freak tells you? Next thing you know, you'll be talking about how Steel no longer resists Dark and Ghost. What about Rayquaza's Dragon Ascent, you might ask? Isn't that move so special that it allows Rayquaza to Mega Evolve? Oh, it's special, alright. So special that it allows Rayquaza to fly way up high, conveniently out of sight, before Mega Rayquaza comes flying back down in a vicious Delta Stream and unleashes its fury. Yeah, that isn't Maractus in disguise. Sure, whatever you say. Sadly, this conspicuous Texas switch didn't last long, as Maractus Rayquaza was quickly banned to Anything Goes, where it continues to terrorize players to this day. Rayquaza remained a solid choice in Auraz Ubers, but it was constantly gazing at the sky, remembering where it used to make the switch with Maractus. Note how when Rayquaza uses Dragon Ascent now, it's Rayquaza that comes back down, not its so-called Mega Evolution that suspiciously resembles a Maraca cactus. Anyway, Maractus sat back, satisfied with the revenge it wrought, until it had a realization. Generation 7 came, and as Maractus sat in Anything Goes once again, it realized it had directed its anger in the wrong place. It had been wronged, true, but it had taken out its fury on the hapless player base. They weren't the ones who had cursed it with a pathetically low base stat total in Generation 5. Maractus turned its gaze where Game Freak had feared it would all along, at them. Maractus flew into a rage. It didn't even bother Mega Evolving into Mega Rayquaza. It raised its base stat total from 461 to 4601 out of sheer anger. One might even call it an ultra burst of fury, especially since the next step Maractus took down its newly necrotic path was to create its own endlessly reusable Z move, Light That Burst Sky High, which was then ripped off and made weaker and less cool by some wannabe legendary Pokemon. Maractus flew to Game Freak headquarters because, as everyone knows, cacti can fly, and you know it's true because it rhymes. Anyway, Maractus flattened the headquarters in all of 2.7 seconds. Additionally, it was able to one-hit KO Pikachu, Greninja, both Mega Charizards, both Mega Mewtwo's, and every other subject of Game Freak's blatant favoritism. The more it attacked, the more power Maractus gained. It was not dissimilar to Tetsuo's rampage through Neo Tokyo in Akira. However, it used these constantly improving powers for benevolence. It gave Milotic and Flygon the Mega Evolutions they deserved, then did the same for Butterfree, ensuring it was no longer neglected in favor of Beedrill. It buffed Pachirisu's base stats to the point of outstanding OE viability, as well as gifting it an ability that allowed it to transcend ground's immunity to electric. Maractus traveled through time and placed Landorus, Therian, and RBY, ensuring that the eventual False Swipe gaming video covering its competitive history would become the Satan Tango of competitive Pokemon YouTube coverage. Maractus eclipsed both Solgaleo and Lunala as the beast that devoured the sun and called the moon. Nebby could never. So all in all, Maractus had a pretty good Generation 7. Game Freak had stayed quiet during Maractus' Generation 7 rampage, but that was for a purpose. When Generation 8 was released, Z moves and Mega Evolutions had been removed from existence. That was no accident or laziness, quite the contrary. In fact, they needed to contain Maractus. To be on the safe side, they also removed Hidden Power, just because there was no sense in risking Specs Maractus terrorizing Ubers, slamming Eternatus with Hidden Power ground so strong it ripped through Protect, hit Flying type super effectively, and set up spikes all at once. Maractus thus fell to untiered, completely unable to find viability in any tier, especially since it could also no longer act as an excellent user of Choice Banded Pursuit, given that Pursuit had been removed from the game and Maractus had been threatened with punitive action if it equipped itself with any boosting items. However, Maractus' complete lack of viability shouldn't be surprising. If the entire game was changed to nerf you, you wouldn't do so great either. Maractus' ultimate dream was the post-modern Pokemon battle in which the boundary between trainer and Pokemon was dissolved completely. completely. At long last, it would have been able to let loose on those actually deserving of its wrath. But for now though, it decided to take it easy again. It had been a couple generations since it had gotten down and dirty with its groovy Looney Tunes. Maractus wrung power out of sand like it's the woman in the dunes. See, just talking about it makes us want to break out in song. It's making us realize that Maractus shares similarities with another legendary human character from some older Pokemon games. We'll have to wait until Generation 9, where Mirabee travels from Ore to claim his place as the flyest, funkiest mother father any Pokemon region's ever seen, with Maractus by his side, giving his trusty Ludicolo something to get down to. And so how bad was Maractus actually? As you may have surmised from the comedic nature of this video, Maractus is one of the worst competitive Pokemon of all time, and we quickly touched upon that in the Generation 5 section. Its stats are just horrible, and it's always entirely outclassed by pretty much everything. The fact that it hasn't received an evolution is baffling. It could potentially make for something really unique and interesting, both design-wise and competitively. And for this video, it would have been immensely drab to simply recite how obscenely unviable Maractus was, and always has been in each subsequent generation of its existence, as that's such a dreary, boring story. We instead decided to spice it up and give Maractus a little glory. Thanks for watching, everyone, and as always, if you liked the video and you want to see more, be sure to subscribe to False Right Gaming for more weekly Pokemon content. And in the comments, I want to know, what would you give Maractus to make it viable, like anywhere? Whatever it is, let me know in the comments. Also, thank you so much to our patrons for continued support of our videos, and thank you to everyone else watching as well. And follow my crew on these social media platforms. And that's all I got. See you next time, everyone.